Gulnara Karimova, the eldest daughter of Uzbekistan's dictator. She was called the richest and the most powerful woman in Central Asia, an ambassador, a representative to the United Nations, a pop star, a fashion designer, and the heir to a throne in a country that officially has no thrones. While millions of Uzbeks were leaving home to find work abroad, Gulnara lived like a princess. It was said that her circle even included Queen Rania of Jordan, and that world-famous stars flew in for her private parties. But in 2014, the unthinkable happened. Her father ordered his favorite daughter locked inside her own home. House arrest began, with no warrant and no explanation. From that day on, Gulnara vanished. And after her father died, rumors spread across the country that she had been poisoned and that she was no longer alive. What really happened to the Uzbek princess? How did her divorce turn into an international scandal? Where did her billions go? And most of all, where is she now? Watch the video to find out why a dictator punished his own daughter. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Uzbekistan became an independent country. Islam Karimov took power and ruled for 25 years, until his death. Human rights defenders called his regime one of the harshest in Central Asia. He built a centralized system of rule backed by the security services and fear. The president had two daughters. The younger one, Lola, has lived in Switzerland for years and always kept to the shadows. The elder one, Gulnara, was considered her father's favorite from early childhood and his greatest hope. She was born in 1972 in Fergana, a large Uzbek city. Her mother was an economist. Her father was an ordinary Soviet bureaucrat who, 20 years later, would become the lifelong ruler of an entire country. Gulnara had an elite education and spoke several languages. She married at 19. At the time, no one had any idea that this marriage would turn into a real nightmare for the groom's entire family. Her husband, Mansur Maksudi, was an American businessman of Afghan Uzbek origin. They were introduced at a party held by her parents in Tashkent. 6 months later, they held two weddings at once, a religious one in Uzbekistan and a civil one in New York. After the wedding, they lived in the United States and ran their business in Uzbekistan. Mansur and his brother opened a Coca-Cola franchise in Tashkent and built bottling plants in cities across the country. Her husband's family turned into an Uzbek business empire. By that point, Gulnara had given birth to two children, a son, Islam, and a daughter, Iman. But their marriage was falling apart. In 2001, she took the children out of the United States and returned to Tashkent. A few days later, her husband filed for divorce in New Jersey. From that moment, everything the Maksudi family had in Uzbekistan began to collapse. By August, the tax authorities had targeted their plants. 3 relatives were arrested, including an uncle. Every Coca-Cola plant in Uzbekistan was shut down. And 6 months later came the night the Maksudi family would remember for the rest of their lives. Security forces broke into their homes in Tashkent. 24 people, among them women, children, and an 85-year-old grandmother, were put into vehicles at gunpoint, driven for 13 hours to the border with Afghanistan, and left there, forbidden to return. Their business, including the Coca-Cola franchise, was handed over to the state. The divorce turned into an international scandal. Maksudi went to an American court, claiming that Gulnara had taken the children without his consent. Uzbekistan opened a criminal case against him for tax violations. From that moment on, neither of the former spouses could freely enter the other's country. This was the first signal. If you have a problem with Gulnara Karimova, you have a problem with an entire state. But how did she go from the beloved daughter of a dictator to a prisoner in her own palace? And where is she now, after her father's death? By then, Gulnara was already building a career in Uzbek diplomacy. Deputy Minister at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador of Uzbekistan to Spain, representative to the United Nations with full diplomatic immunity. All of it looked like the brilliant career of a president's daughter. But Swiss prosecutors would later give this project a completely different name: the Office. That, according to the Swiss investigation, was what they called the criminal organization Gulnara had built around herself. The scheme was simple. Foreign mobile operators wanted to work in Uzbekistan, but without the approval of Gulnara's people, getting a license was almost impossible. Sweden's Telia and Russia's MTS and Vimpelcom transferred money to her companies and received the permits they needed. Over 10 years, almost $1 billion passed through this scheme. Later, all three operators admitted guilt and paid record fines. By then, Gulnara was a billionaire with properties across Europe. Swiss prosecutors eventually froze hundreds of millions of dollars in her accounts. But being the richest woman in the region was not enough for Gulnara. She wanted to be a star. Gulnara took the stage name Gugusha. According to rumors, that was what her father called her as a child. She released a music album. She recorded duets with Julio Iglesias and with the Spanish opera diva Montserrat Caballé. And she brought Sting to Tashkent. For a single evening, the British singer received, according to media reports, around $1 million. At the same time, Gulnara was launching her own fashion line, Guli, a jewelry collection with the House of Chopard, and her own perfume. But at Fashion Week in New York, Gulnara ran into serious resistance for the first time. A human rights organization reminded the world that the Uzbek cotton her collection was sewn from is picked every autumn by children, pulled out of school and taken into the fields. The show was cancelled, but inside the country itself there were no consequences for Gulnara at all. In a secret report by American diplomats that made its way into the press, Gulnara was described as the most hated person in Uzbekistan. Local business owners kept saying the same thing. If she liked your business, the National Security Service came to see you, and a month later the business was no longer yours. By 2013, Gulnara was increasingly described as her father's likely successor, and many believed she could become Central Asia's first female president. But that was when she made the mistake that cost her everything. What exactly happened between Gulnara and her father, nobody knows for certain. According to one version, she crossed a line in the struggle over the succession. According to another, her corruption cases abroad had begun to threaten the regime itself, and Karimov decided to sacrifice his daughter. Only one thing is clear. On February 14, 2014, on Valentine's Day, officers of the Uzbek Security Service came to her house in Tashkent. They showed no warrant and gave no reason. They blocked the doors and cut off communication. House arrest began, in her own home together with her 15-year-old daughter, Iman. The girl lost the right to go to school. Gulnara's first trial was not held in a courtroom, but right in the kitchen of her own house. The sentence was 5 years of restricted liberty, effectively a form of house arrest. And a year later, her father died. Her father, for 25 years, he had been the only person who could either protect his daughter or put her behind bars. There is a version that the house arrest, while he was alive, was not so much a punishment as an attempt to shield her from something worse, from the very system he had built himself. But after his death, there was no one left to protect her. Gulnara was not allowed out for her father's funeral. Soon, rumors appeared that she herself was already dead. Her son Islam publicly demanded that the authorities prove his mother was alive. The authorities kept silent for a long time. Only several months later did the Uzbek prosecutor's office officially confirm for the first time Gulnara was alive, convicted, and in custody. The presidency went to the former Prime Minister Shavkat Mirziyoyev. And from that day, the trials over the office came one after another. 2 years later, something happened that she had not expected. Men in uniform pulled up at her house. They walked Gulnara to a car and took her away to a women's prison colony. She was found to be the head of a criminal organization, The final sentence, 13 years in prison. Inside the colony, Gulnara lived unlike anyone else. She partitioned off part of the room with bedsheets, and her food was brought in from the city. Through her daughter's Instagram, Gulnara appealed to the new president, Mirziyoyev. She offered to hand the state $686 million from her frozen Swiss accounts in exchange for her freedom. No answer ever came. In 2025, Gulnara was moved to a lower security penal settlement, where conditions were less restrictive and visits more frequent. That same year, a special United Nations working group ruled that her detention was arbitrary and unlawful. According to its findings, she was shown no documents at the time of her arrest. The hearings were held behind closed doors, and she was never given access to her own case file. Part of her frozen foreign assets was handed to Uzbekistan through a special United Nations fund, but most of it remains frozen in Swiss banks. International investigations continue, and each of them runs into the same problem. Uzbekistan will not extradite her or allow her to appear in court. Once, Gulnara Karimova spoke from the podium of the United Nations, bought mansions across Europe, invited world stars to give private concerts, and, in the opinion of many, was preparing to become the first woman president in Central Asia. Today she is 53 years old. If she serves her sentence to the end, she will walk out of the colony at the end of 2028. Her children, her son Islam, and her daughter Iman, live in London. Her younger sister Lola still lives in Switzerland, has never been under investigation, and, according to some reports, inherited most of the family fortune. The sisters had not spoken for 12 years even before all of this happened, and they have not reconciled to this day. The irony of this story is not that a rich and powerful woman ended up in prison. It is that the system which crushed her was built, in large part, by her own father. The same system that controlled everyone under Karimov eventually closed in on his own daughter when she became inconvenient. In the end, Gulnara lost everything. Nothing is left of the Uzbek princess. No power, no billions, no freedom. What do you think? Was this a punishment she deserved, or a price far too cruel? Write your opinion in the comments. Give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. See you next time.